Today's video we're going to be putting together a 2004 Pentium 4 Prescott build.
We review old technology from games to old PCs, and don't forget the thoughts. Yeah, ancient electronics, we cover it all.
So what is the stated purpose of this build? Well, first and foremost, the current project that I'm working on has hit a bit of a snag. While that project was sort of on hold, in standby, if you will. The other thing is I have never used a Prescott-based PC. I just never have. I pretty much skipped the whole Pentium 4 generation altogether. I don't really feel too bad about that. But on this channel I have played around with some Pentium 4s. I've played around with the Willamettes pretty extensively with RDRAM, and a while back I made a video like a 2003 Dream build, and I put together a Pentium 4 system based on the Northwood and tried to use like the fastest parts from 2003. I think I was using a 3.2 maybe 3.4 gigahertz Northwood hyper-threading Pentium 4. I think it was 3.2. And I loved that build, actually. It worked out really good. It was super stable. I had no issues with it. It was a pretty cool build. I really liked that build. Check out that video after this one. I'll make a link to it. But I've never messed with the Prescotts. They always had the reputation that they ran really hot. They were really disappointing, even as far as Pentium 4s go. And usually you were just better off with a Northwood. You know, even though the Prescotts were the next generation of Pentium 4s, a lot of things I've read and see people say is generally the Northwoods were still better. They ran cooler, and they were just as fast or faster in a lot of games. So we'll see. I'm curious. So I'm going to put together this Prescott-based Pentium 4 system. Now, something I do need to state here, this isn't really a best of. I'm not putting together a high-end best components from like 2004-ish or anything. I'm just kind of using what I have around the room here. So some of the parts I use in this build are going to be low-end maybe, some are going to be average, and some are going to be high-end. It's going to be a mix. I'm going to try to put together the highest-end stuff I have, to be honest. And since we're talking about that, like time frame or period correctness, I'm going to go with like a loose period correctness here. I'm going to shoot for 2004-ish, but we're not going to be very strict about like if it's period correct. So that's that. Okay, so let's get into the parts I'll be using for this build. So as far as cases for the Prescott build goes, you guys might recognize this case. This is the famous Pac-Man case, PC case from around 2003. So it's kind of error correct for a 2004 build. Now I previously used this case for my 2003 Dream machine based on the Pentium 4 Northwood, and I figured it would be suitable to reuse this case for the 2004 Prescott build. So overall I do like this case. Good expandability. I like the the Pac-Man there with the reset, and then you've got your LEDs for hard drive and power, and you've got a little USB little compartment there, and there's a fan on the side, and yeah, it's a pretty decent iconic early 2000s PC case. So let's look at the motherboard. So as I said earlier, I don't know if this is like one of the best or even better motherboards for like socket 478 that supports a Prescott. This just happens to be what I have, and it's an Asus motherboard, so it's got to be decent quality, right? And it hits all the pluses here. This is kind of a plain box, but I do have this board in the box. But it has the cool features that we would want for that year. AGP x8 support. DDR doesn't support DDR2, but DDR 400, and it does support Prescott and hyper-threading and all that good stuff. It is the P4P800VM socket 478. It has the Intel 856G chipset. Supports Prescott, says they're right there. Hyper-threading ready. It does have integrated graphics, but we're going to take advantage of that AGP x8. Dual channel DDR 400. Yeah, so it's got all the cool little things that we'd want. And I have tested this once, and it did extras, and it did post, so it should be working. But you know, I think it was used, but well, I don't know. I don't even know if this motherboard's been used, because look, the back plate is still in this. Still got the cables here and some nifty jumpers. Instruction manual was handy. Although you can always look up most of these instruction manuals and stuff like on the internet, I still like having like the paper. Like I just physically, I mean, obviously I'm not emulating. I don't really like emulating. I like to actually have the physical stuff here, but sometimes it's just faster if you have the manual. Just I could do this faster than I can look it up on the internet, to be honest. Motherboard, or we've got the driver CD, and it looks like a case badge in there, powered by a Zeus case badge. That's pretty cool. And so yeah, this board supports SATA as well. Now I think this board is from, whoop, there goes my IDE cables. I think this board is from 2003, but that's just fine. No problem there whatsoever. So I do have the CPU already installed in this because I wanted to test it. I'm actually surprised I got the CPU working because I had to play around with some bent pins on it. Alright, so let's take a look at the board really quick here, and then we'll take a look at the CPU and the other components I'll be using. So again, this is the Asus P4P800 VM motherboard. It's a smaller form factor. I always get confused between, I mean obviously it's ATX, but I always get confused between like micro and mini ATX. It's one of the smaller style ATX boards. Alright, so let's take a closer look at the board here. A 865G chipset, we talked about that. Nice AGP x8 slot, so we can use a nice, faster, higher-end AGP card for 2004, and I think I have some nice ones we can put in here. And then just 3 PCI slots. So this wouldn't make a great like retro, like say DOS or even maybe Windows 98, 95 motherboard, but for like early Windows XP, I think this is a great board. Now all the capacitors look good. I don't think they've been replaced or anything. I mean, they look good to me. I don't see anything weird or smell anything. Some of you guys are very eagle-eyed. I can see here in person, and I can inspect all these and like, yeah, they're good. And then I'll post the video, and someone will be like, cap upper right-hand corner, second cap to the left, or whatever, it's bulging. It's like, wow, you guys are good. But I think they all, well, actually, I misspoke. This one doesn't look good at all. But we'll go with it. This is, oh no, that's funny I said that because I didn't notice. This one, it doesn't look too bulged, but it definitely has some crust on it. Alright, well yeah, I didn't even see it on initial inspection, but see that cap right there? It's bulging a little bit. It's the only cap I see on this board that is bulging, but I mean, I do have another socket. I do have another socket 478 board I could potentially use for this project, but we've seen it before. I wanted to try this board out. Right here we have 4 RAM sockets. This does support 400 megahertz DDR. I think that's also PC 3200. I think it does support a full 4 gigabytes of memory, and it does support dual channel memory mode. I think these are, here's your floppy connector. These are ATA 100 right here for your IDE, and not too much else interesting. If we look, this board does have a lot built in. We have PS2, of course, for keyboard and mouse. Parallel serial, we have built-in graphics. It's for the chipset. I think it's like Intel Extreme built-in integrated graphics. USB 2.0, we have 4 of those ports. 10/100 Ethernet, and then we do have built-in audio. I'm not sure what the audio is. I guess I can look it up in the manual. So according to the manual here, the built-in audio is AD 1980 SoundMax 6-channel audio codec. So, yay. Alright, so that said, let's move on. So right here, this is our CPU in question. This is the CPU I'll be using for this project. It is a 3.2 gigahertz Prescott. Now, the Prescotts are kind of notorious for being underwhelming and running really, really hot compared to the Northwoods. The main difference is the cache. I believe the Northwoods all had 512K of L2 cache on board, where these Prescotts have a full 1 megabyte of L2 cache on board. Now I do have a Northwood that's actually pretty much the same as this one. Hyper-threading, same speed, 3.2 gigahertz. It has half the cache, but it runs a lot cooler. I really like that CPU, so I'm curious how this one will perform. You know, I've heard they're mostly better when you get to the higher speed Prescott. So the lower speed Prescotts I've heard, say the 2.8 gigahertz Prescott chips, the Northwoods usually outperform them. You really start seeing the benefit of that higher amount of onboard L2 cache when you start hitting the higher speeds. Now, 3.2 is not the fastest Prescott. I think 3.4 or 3.6 may have been the fastest, but this is up there. This is one of the faster Prescotts that was released. So, tried to get a hold of one of those faster ones, but just prices on, believe it or not, even these Pentium 4s is starting to get really exorbitant, at least for what they are. I'm not going to spend the money people are asking for a Prescott. But anyways, I had this one kicking around, so let's try it out now. Again, I know with the heat that the CPU may be a problem, because all I have are stock heatsink and fan for these. This is basically what I have. It's a stock Intel heatsink. It is the better one with the copper core, so I'm hoping this will be good enough to keep it cool, but I don't know. If it's not, I might have to put the project on hold. Alright, so now for our moment of truth. Let's see what happens. Spinning up. Nothing on the... Okay, there we go. Green light. That's a plus. I did use Arctic MX. I did use some premium paste, thermal paste. So that's good. That's something. And all right, 3.2. All right, looks like we're in business. So hopefully it doesn't overheat and shut itself down. We'll only be able to tell through time and testing. All right, so it looks like it's working out here. I went to the BIOS, Intel Pentium 4, 3.2 gigahertz, 3.2 gigahertz. We've got our 800 megahertz front side bus speed. There is the L2 cache, a full 1 megabyte, so we know it is a Prescott, and then, you know, hyper-threading is enabled, so alright, we're good to go. Poof! There we go, magical, just like that. The capacitor has been replaced with a nice new one. Went over all the other caps. You know, I would recommend, if you're going to replace a capacitor on an old motherboard, you know, you should probably replace all of them at once, but I don't know, we're going to roll the dice here. I don't really think it was necessary with this board. The other caps look good, but did replace that bulging cap. So we're ready to go forward here. You know, if you watch my video, I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier in this video, but I did do a 2003 Dream Machine PC a couple years back, and it was based on a Northwood 3.2 gigahertz Pentium 4. And I really liked that machine. It was fast, it was super stable, fast for a Pentium 4, but it was quite capable, and I actually ended up really liking it. But there was one thing that there was one thing about that board that I used in that video that this one has a little leg up. They're mostly the same. Here, let me grab the board that I used in that video. Okay, so here's the board I'm going to be using in this Prescott build, and here's the board I used in my 2003 Dream Machine, and it even still has the 3.2 gigahertz Northwood chip in there. So this is a Soyo Dragon 2 board. Specifically, it's the P4i8 3.65PE Plus Dragon 2 board. So these are very similar boards from, I believe, around the same time. I think these are both from about 2003. So they are contemporaries. Now, obviously, this one's a full-size ATX board. This one is smaller. I always get the micro and mini and stuff mixed up, so it's just a smaller version. First off, this one does have more PCI slots. I don't think that's a big deal. Really, all I care about is maybe a sound card. I don't think I'll be adding anything other than a sound card and a video card, so I don't really care about the extra slots. This has built-in video that we won't be using anyways. This one has an extra serial port, which I'm not really using anyways, so that's moot. So other than that, this one I think they might have the same chipset. This one might be either slightly newer or a different revision because it does have the built-in video, but more or less the same, more or less. I would think the big difference is I think this board in the BIOS supports overclocking, whereas this one doesn't, which I'm not really going to do overclocking anyways, although it would be nice to have the option. But I think the big depending on what you're going for, the thing I like about this board over the Dragon 2 is actually the more memory support. So even though this is a smaller motherboard, we actually have 4 slots here, so we can actually add a full gigabyte of DDR memory, where the Soyo Dragon here only has the 3 slots. So I could only max this thing out at 3 gigabytes, where I can do 4 on this. And the other thing is I can do 4 on this and have dual channel memory all around. Whereas this one, I either go with 3 gigabytes and no dual channel, or like I did in the video, just go with 2 gigabytes and dual channel. So I do like how this board supports more memory in dual channel mode. Now, building something from around 2003, 2004, do you really need 4 gigabytes of memory? No. As we saw in that 2003 Dream Machine, this thing did just fine with 2 gigabytes, but I like the option of being able to have the full, or as full as you can have. It'll probably end up being like 3.5 gigabytes of memory because just how XP works with the video memory and stuff. We'll see. But I like the option of having more memory with this board here. Alright, actually, I took a quick peek at Google to refresh my memory here. And actually for this socket here, socket 475, 3.4 gigahertz is the fastest Prescott CPU that you can put in here. Now, this is 3.2, so it's close. It's only 200 megahertz slower. I would put in a 3.4, but like I said a little earlier in the video, I'm not willing to pay the the $60-ish people seem to be asking for that Prescott for this particular socket. Even 30 or 40, in my opinion, is too much for just an extra 200 megahertz. Or for this video, really. So we're just going to go with the 3.2 because, well, that's what I have on hand. They did go faster in LGA 775, that socket. The Prescotts, I want to say they went up to like 3.8 gigahertz. I think they planned a 4 gigahertz, but I don't think it ever came out. So you can get faster Prescotts in socket LGA 775. Alright, so for our hard drive here, I decided to go with this WD-1200. I believe it's a 120 gigabyte hard drive. This is the only hard drive I could find in my collection that was from actually the year 2004. Of course, if you're doing a build like this, you don't have to be so period correct. This board does support SATA, so you could throw in a faster SATA drive or something, but I think this is this is enhanced IDE. I think this is like ATA 100, I think. So, I mean, it's fine. It's fine for this build, but of course, if you're doing your own thing, you can put in something faster if you want. I personally don't really care too much. And right now, I am installing XP Professional. So for sound, probably not a surprise, I went with the Sound Blaster Audigy 2 ZS. This is the last revision of the Sound Blaster Audigy 2, the ZS, and it has slightly better sound to noise ratio than the older Audigy 2 cards, and a few other things too. There is a better version of this. I guess there's like a Audigy 2 ZS Platinum and a Platinum Pro, which I think are even like slightly better like sound to noise ratio than this guy here, but unless you're a real audiophile, I guess you probably wouldn't really notice that too much. This card came out in 2003. We're looking at 2004, so this is still would be our best option. I believe Sound Blaster's card that came after this, why can't I think of what it was called? The something, I don't remember. X-Fi, I think, series. I believe that was released in 2005. So 2004, as far as like games and stuff go for sound, this is probably our best bet here. Got a lot of connections. So yeah, this is a decent card. A lot of little connections. I think that's Firewire, and then I think this actually supports like 7 channels. So if you have like a 7-speaker setup, surround sound setup, I believe this card should work with it. So yeah, pretty good card for gaming. So yeah, Sound Blaster Audigy 2 ZS is what we're going for sound-wise with this build. Alright, so memory. So the fastest this board could take, is our fastest memory here, is DDR, just original DDR1, but DDR1 400 megahertz. So I want to run 4 gigabytes in dual channel mode. Unfortunately, I do not have 4 matching sticks of DDR 400. As you can see here, I have this one, but I have mostly matching sticks down there. So we're going to have one stick that's like a different brand here, but hopefully it should still all work fine. It should all still work in dual channel mode, and these should all be DDR 400 sticks. It's kind of a shame that that like naked green stick there really throws off the vibe of this board with the RAM, since we've got these 3 Corsair sticks of RAM, and they all have like fancy like heat sinks on the sticks, and then we just have this like really generic looking stick in there. I don't know. It kind of throws off the vibe, but it's what I have, so hopefully it should work fine. Alright, and now for video. So for video, we're going with this guy here. This is the GeForce 6800 Ultra. It's kind of a hard to find card these days, but this is one of the top dogs of 2004. So there's a faster version of this card. There's actually the 6800 Ultra Extreme, which is slightly faster than this card, but I do not have one of those, so this is about the fastest card I actually own from the year 2004. Now, this did have competition, which is debatably a faster card, which would be this guy here. This is a Radeon X850 XT, I think. Now, this card of mine isn't working. I wish it was, but it is completely dead. And I've tried to get it fixed, and it's dead. It's unfixable. So this would be the fastest card. Now, another channel that covers video cards, Pixel Pipes, did a good video comparing these two cards. And I think in the end he found the X850 XT, or at least the extreme version of the X50 XT Extreme Edition or Platinum or something like that. In the end, especially with more modern drivers, is faster than the GeForce 6, although I believe the GeForce does have, you know, they trade blows. This does have a couple features that the Radeon card doesn't have, but either way, it's a moot point. This is up there as one of the faster cards of 2004 if you're building a period correct 2004 build. It doesn't have a VGA connector, so unfortunately I have to use one of those DVI to VGA So unfortunately I have to use one of those DVI to VGA adapter thingamajigs, like this thing right here, which is a little annoying. I wish it just had a VGA port on it, but that's fine. There's also something very unique, well, I mean not unique, but cool about this specific version of the card. So when we were getting around this era, PCIe was starting to, you know, be a thing, and it was kind of taking over AGP. And so a lot of cards they come out with, including the GeForce 6800, they use something called a bridge chip, which the card was kind of meant for PCIe, but it used this special chip to translate into like the AGP protocol or whatever. Now the interesting thing about the 6800, it was in this weird middle ground, and some of the 6800, the GeForce 6800s, were actual pure AGP, and they didn't use a bridge chip. But a lot of these 6800 and 6800 Ultras did use a bridge chip. Now this version has a certain core version. Usually you would see it on the back here, it'd be a little separate chip, but there is actually no bridge chip in this. This is a pure AGP 6800 Ultra. Now for most people out there that's not going to make any difference at all, but there are a small number of motherboards that actually have trouble with video cards that use the bridge chip, where this card would work just fine. So for instance, long time ago I had a dual Tualatin motherboard. It's kind of a server motherboard, and it actually, the chipset on it and the board itself had issues with cards that used bridge chips. So something like this is probably was about the fastest card I could find that would actually work in that motherboard, because anything with a bridge chip, like I put in a GeForce 7 series card, I think those all have bridge chips, even if they're AGP, garbled graphics, wouldn't work. So so there are certain cases where you might want a pure AGP card. This build, it's irrelevant, but I just wanted to point that out. Something kind of cool about this card specifically. So unfortunately, change of plans. I seem to be having problems with this 6800 Ultra, which is unfortunate because these seem to be fairly rare and expensive these days. It seems to be mostly working. Sometimes it will get through one of the 3D benchmarks just fine, but it is throwing some garbled graphics here and there. I'm not sure what it is exactly. Maybe the power supply isn't pumping enough power to it. Maybe it's overheating. Maybe I should remove the fan and heatsink and maybe reapply some thermal paste and see if that helps. Either way, for the purpose of the time frame of this video, I don't really have time to mess with this card and like get it working, so I'm gonna swap it out. Remember, this build isn't about making the most powerful build for 2004. It's just, I just never really made a Prescott build before, so I'm just using what I have. So this I will be replacing with something fairly similar, which is this guy here. And this is a BFG, this is a GeForce 6800 GT OC. So they're pretty close as far as speed goes. I believe the Ultra is clocked at 400 megahertz, and this 6800 GT OC is clocked at 370 megahertz. So they're fairly close as far as speed goes. I think this has the same, features as the Ultra. There's actually some good points about this over the Ultra, actually. I don't have to use one of these stupid little DVI to VGA adapters. It actually has just a regular VGA port on there, which is nice. It's single slot as opposed to double for the Ultra. Less power, just one Molex connector as opposed to two. And it has this cool copper heatsink and these blue LED fans here. So yeah, there are some benefits to using this card, and it's just slightly slower. So this is what we're going to go with now for the build. Alright, so let's take a look at some benchmarks here. Remember, we are using the NVIDIA GeForce 6800 GT OC. Resolution pretty much for all of these benchmarks and games is going to be 1024 by 768. That seems to be the standard resolution for 2004. I know there's probably going to be someone in the comments that's going to fight me over that, but from the sources I looked at, it seems like 1024 by 768 was kind of the average standard resolution people were using in 2004. As far as drivers, we are using period correct drivers, so Forceware, I believe 61.77, that is a driver from 2004. Of course, you can use later drivers where you may or may not get better performance and or worse or better compatibility with certain software. So first thing we're going to look at is the venerable 3D Mark 2001 SE. And in this very venerable benchmark, we got a score of 19,257. And next up, we have 3D Mark 2003. So kicking it up a little bit of a notch here. And in this benchmark, we got a score with the Prescott build of 11,508. And here's our benchmark for Comanche 4. I have Fraps running here, so that saps a little bit of FPSs away, just a little bit. But I didn't get fantastic FPS in this, which is interesting. I believe when Phil did his video on the Prescott, this benchmark gave him a little bit like low numbers too, if I'm remembering correctly. But I got an FPS rating on this of 41.72 frames per second on this particular benchmark. And lastly, for our benchmark, we have the Doom 3 benchmark here. Now, this game tended to favor NVIDIA cards, so this game should favor the GeForce 6 over if we had like a Radeon in here. So for Doom 3 benchmark, we got a FPS score of 79.5, which is pretty good. Now, I was quite interested in comparing the Prescott to the Northwood. So what I did decide to do is I did remove the 3.2 gigahertz Prescott from this machine, and I replaced it with the 3.2 gigahertz Northwood. Now keep in mind, I changed nothing else, no drivers, nothing. It was a simple, quick CPU swap, and these are the results that I got. So Prescott results on the left and the Northwood on the right. And as you can see, generally the Prescott did perform a little bit better. Not now, especially in the 3D Mark 2001-2003, not shockingly better, but it did get a little bit higher score. Also, if we drop down to the bottom, Doom 3 is, you know, pretty close, but still it's noticeable. It's about an 8 FPS difference between the Prescott and the Northwood, with the Prescott doing about 8 FPS better, give or take. Now, Comanche 4, again, is the weird outlier here. In Comanche 4, the Northwood did markedly better by like 20-ish FPS. I mean, that's a big difference. We got about 42 FPS on the Prescott build and 62 on the Northwood, so quite a difference there. Again, I don't know what's going on with Comanche 4. Maybe it's using something that, I don't know. The Prescott's just not doing it for Comanche 4. Now, keep in mind this is a very, very, very small sample set of games and benchmarks here, so take it with a grain of salt, but these are the results I got from a quick and dirty CPU swap. Alright, so let's just take a moment here and let's just look at a few games running on the system with the 3.2 gigahertz Prescott. So before we start looking at a few games proper, I just wanted to point out I did try to get Far Cry to work, because it's kind of like a standard game to try out from this time period. I think it was kind of like the game, one of the games of 2004, I think. But for whatever reason, when it would get into the game, it would lock up and then I would get an error. I have no idea why on this particular setup and system Far Cry would throw this error and not work. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's something Far Cry doesn't seem to like about this system. Maybe one of you guys can look at the error here and tell me what was going on. Maybe it's an issue with the memory, but didn't seem to be affecting any of the other games I tried playing. So I did try to get Far Cry to run. This particular build, for whatever reason, doesn't like it. So let's look at a number of other games running on the 3.2 gigahertz Prescott build. And that was our look at this Prescott PC build. My first real experience spending any time with a Pentium 4 Prescott. Now, I've never been a fan of the Pentium 4. I actually skipped that generation. I had a Socket 939 machine during the time. I really liked my 2003 Dream machine. That Pentium 4 was a Northwood 3.2 gigahertz. I would suggest, if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch it. I'll link it in the description. But I really liked that machine. It was really stable, and it was better than I thought. As for this machine, I didn't think this one was much different. I don't think the Prescott added much to the build, except maybe some extra heat. But I don't know. I guess I'll let you guys decide. I did find this build to be a little more unstable. My Northwood build was rock solid, but this guy was a little unstable. I can't really blame that on the CPU, because everything in this was different from the 2003 build. So it could have been the motherboard, it could have been power supply, it could have been anything. It wasn't really unstable, but I just had a few crashes where on my Northwood build I didn't have any. But again, I can't blame the CPU for that. But yeah, overall, I mean, it was fine. Looking at the few benchmarks and comparisons, again, the Prescott overall does, even at the same speeds, does seem to be the faster CPU, but not by a ton. It seems to really depend on the software, though. In the 3D marks, there wasn't too much of a difference. In Doom 3, though, the Prescott did seem to do a lot better. And then in Comanche 4, it seemed to do a lot worse than the Northwood. So it seems pretty software dependent. But I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you think of the Prescott in general? The Pentium 4, this build. I might do another one of these Prescott builds later if I ever come across like a faster Prescott. And now I have that Ultra working, the 6800 Ultra. Maybe I'll throw that in. Maybe I'll revisit this build and do some upgrades in the future. But other than that, let me know what you think about the Pentium 4 Prescott and this build in general. And thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.